In this segment, I'm going to talk about lighting in the SceneDesigner tool and how to set it up and optimize it. So first off, I'm going to create a simple scene. This is the holodeck palette, and I've got grid and snap settings turned on. I'm going to place a couple hallway sections here. So here's one, and then we'll clone another one right over here. I'm holding down Shift to clone it, and then we'll rotate this back around. There we go. So now we've got a very simple hallway segment. Now notice as I place these two segments, they appear lit and by sort of a flat light. This is because default lights are turned on and enabled by default when in SceneDesigner when there are no other lights in the scene. You can change that if you go to your options, light settings, and you toggle use default lights on and off, and you can see the lights turn off. So now we're going to go ahead and add a light to the scene. So I'm going to go up to the general palette and add a light. Now all these lights templates here are really just standard entity templates that have a transformation and a light component added to it. And all of these templates have the exact same light component added to it, they just have different properties. So for example, this particular one is a directional light, and we're going to go ahead and place a spotlight in the scene here. Actually, I'll place a point light first. We'll place it right there. I'm going to turn grid and snap settings off. So now notice right now that the light has been placed. The default lights are no longer taking effect, but nothing is lit. This is because there's another option in the light settings, which is automatically add entities to lights, and this happened to be false. So if that were true, so let's place the light again. Notice the default lights come back when that light's deleted. If that were true when I place this light, you would see the light affect all of the entities. And this, by the way, is the default setting, is for it to be on. So every light that you place will have all of the entities added to in the scene added to its affected entities list over here. That can be useful for small scenes like this where you really only want to light a couple things and you want everything to be lit. However, you don't always want that to happen. So for another case here, let's turn that off. Okay, and now we'll come in here and we'll place a spotlight. Let's place it over in this other corner. Now notice it doesn't light anything yet. We'll go ahead and move it up and we'll rotate it a little bit so it's pointing sort of into the corner. Alright, so now this light is not affecting anything right now, and if we want it to affect things, we can go to the affected entities property, come in here and select the hallway segment that we want it to, select the hallway segment that we want it to affect. So in this case, we selected this segment over here, and you can see the light is now affecting that. Now let's walk through some of the properties that you see with the light here. So the first up are the attenuation properties, and these are constants in the lighting equation that can be modified, and they directly map to the attenuation properties of a Gamebryo light. So you can see here the attenuation property, the quadratic attenuation property of this point light is rather small. If we wanted to change that to something larger, we could, and we would get a very different attenuation. So you can fiddle with those in here on a per light basis, or you could fiddle with them in the templates and create different templates for each of the lights that have different characteristics. Another setting is the actual type of light. As you see down here, this is a spotlight. I can change the type of light simply by clicking there and making it a point light. Or a directional light, in fact, can be done the same way. Now notice, since this light is only affecting this entity, it's only contributing to lighting on that entity, which is why there's that discontinuous spot there. And on this particularly, we can adjust the spotlight cone. So I'll make it a little bit bigger so it's a little bit easier to see right there. So now, right now, if we can also change the color of the light. So let's go in here and do that. This is another property here. So we'll change this one to be sort of a yellowish color. We'll come over here and change this one to be sort of a greenish hue. So you can see the immediate response of the lighting in here. You can also set the dimmer of the light to control how bright the light is. and make some adjustments there as well. So let me select the spotlight here and rotate it over, and notice that, as I mentioned before, the yellow light is not affecting this entity over here. It's only affecting the entity on the left. This is because we manually added only that entity to the light. Well, sometimes you want the light to, you want to automatically determine which entities should be affected by a light, and that's easy to do. Simply select the light, come up here to the Optimize Selected Lights button, and mash it, and now both of these entities are in the affected entities property for that light. Similarly, we can rotate this back so it's only pointing at this one entity, hit Optimize Selected Entities again, and that other entity is removed. This can be very useful when you are setting up lighting for a large scene and you only really want lights to affect the entities that they actually have a sphere of influence over. The same thing can be done for point lights based on the attenuation properties and whether or not the majority of the light reaches the other entities. Another thing you can do is you can select an entity in the scene and hit the Select Lights Affecting Entities button, and that will affect both the lights that are affecting that particular entity. So that's an easy way to figure out which lights are affecting which entities, short of searching through every light. So those are the light basics and setting up and optimizing lights in SceneDesigner.